Warning, this show contains adult content. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. Coming to you guys live from my F-350 pickup truck. That's the background noise on my work commute. This is the Up and In It show, and it's time for another episode. And today we're going to talk about inner and outer engineering. This is the third week of December 2020. I've been on a rampage. Yes, a rampage of going out there and trying to speak my word. These are all just my opinions, but trying to help the fellas out, trying to help people out to get through these rough times. And I think that a lot of it has to do with what we got going on the inside and what we got going on around us on the outside. So a lot of it is today I wanted to focus on things that we have going on the inside, how we can deal with them. In order for us to help the earth, help others out, we need to get our own shit straight. And I just wanted to kind of brush over that. And I also wanted to go out of outer engineering and talk about a little bit about what we can do with people and what we can do with the earth and how we can manipulate the earth in a symbiotic relationship with nature, how we can utilize such things as permaculture, and we can actually design not only beautiful insides, but beautiful outsides as far as working with other people, working with nature, and just improving quality of life for both people and the planet. So with that, let's get into the show. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life raw. So I've got a couple show notes here. And the very first one is running towards problems instead of away from problems. And it's one observation that I've noticed with a lot of people, and I think this might be somewhat of a clue as to why there's a lot of depression and suicide and just very negative feelings, because nobody really wants to. I don't think it's very popular, is it? Let's run towards the problem. You know, what the fuck are you, a fireman? Are you a park ranger, Walter? You know? But I think that when your life becomes streamlined and you begin to know exactly what it is that you want and you're able to go after it and things go relatively smooth, one thing that pisses me off about a lot of content creators and movies and the systems is that they usually portray like just a perfect world. It's just wonderful. Look at this. Not a care in the world. We always have problems, basically, is what I'm saying. But for those of us who keep cleaning up house and we keep addressing the problems and coming up with solutions, I believe, in my opinion, that our lives flow a lot better. So not to say that none of us people who have flow never have problems. We get little stuff that happens all the time, but we deal with them as they come. And as I share on this show a lot, is that it's like a muscle. And I think that once you start exercising your ability and train yourself, which is what I'm hoping to get the message today, to deal with these things, then I think there's definitely quality of life. So a lot of us people, I think, we actually run towards the problem. So to give you guys, for instance, when remotely anything happens in my business, whenever there's a problem in my home, I notice a lot, like, I think a good example would be a little bit of my personal life when I separated from my children's mother, and it was time for me to actually be a homemaker. And I never have been a homemaker. I've never taken care of kids. I didn't really know how to cook much, so it was a whole new world for me. And it's kind of, sometimes you can get scared. I think a lot of things that I've done, and I think a lot of other people, successful people would say, they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They just got in there and they did it, and they learned as they went. They got to educate themselves. But yeah, there was a lot that I didn't know. There was a lot that I was intimidated about because supposedly a stay-at-home mother, I guess maybe I should explain myself too, as mother of my children, not to get too personal, stayed home, was a homemaker. And we both decided someone should be there to take care of the kids. So I worked my ass off. I worked a lot to try to provide as a single income. And then when things changed, I ended up taking over my children, and for the majority, for the vast part, And yeah, I had to learn all these things out. I had to iron out all the kinks and go through a lot of troubleshooting. And that's kind of what I hope with these lifestyle design, I guess, is what this show is all about. I coined it as the alternative lifestyle design. So we always have alternatives, and that's what it is to streamline life and start working towards a lot of these problems that we have going on. So to finish up on the homemaker example, you know, I figured out all kinds of different things where I can utilize machineries and things like that, which I talk about a lot, and just kind of come up with my own ideas and organize things like a business, getting menu planning, actually writing down what I'm going to cook for dinner. That way I know what to grocery shop for instead of aimlessly running through life and not knowing what we got going on. That causes a lot of stress. So it's sort of an inner engineering as far as inside your mind of what you have before you. The outer, it's like a yin-yang. The outer affects you, but the inner affects you as well. There's a lot of sayings out there. It's your perspective. Change what you're looking at and change what you're looking as. So the goggles of your perception of yourself and everything else, I think, is very vastly underestimated and kind of swept aside. What we have, I think, here is a recession of the self. I think we've had this long before this whole COVID-19 thing. I think a lot of people are in a self-recession, meaning that a lot of the inner workings, a lot of the inner power and strengths and the utilities of utilizing your mind and creating the realities and the energies and the feelings that you prefer, I think a lot of people are pretty much asleep to the concepts. I think a lot of people don't know the first place to even. I know that a lot of people are scared to be alone, and I find this insane because there's so much that you can do. I mean, we are social creatures. I understand complete self-isolation is a crazy thing, but to be alone just for a day or two and you're already freaking out, like you got to have something around you, and I think this is a sad world, and but we got to get the inner strength. We got to stay positive, right? But we've been in a recession, and I think that my next thing is that we can do a self-reset. So there's a bunch of talk right now about a financial reset, the Great Reset, all this stuff about, I don't know, how we're going to change the world. It was in Time magazine. I thought it was one of those conspiracy theory things. And, you know, there's so much shit out there. So many things people are just trying to freak each other out over. And damn, some of them got some really compelling information. I don't know about evidence, but they could really weave a damn story pretty good. But yeah, I think that we need a self-reset. And I think that takes time, and that takes time alone. And what can I say other than to sit with yourself in nature is one of the things I really recommend to people, to take your shoes off. They call it grounding, I guess. I don't know. I've been doing it my entire life. But there's something to it. I notice when I'm working and I don't have time to go barefoot, I've always got to wear, you know, safety boots and shoes and things of that nature. But when you do take your shoes off and you stand inside the soil or put your feet inside of a stream or in the ocean or even in a lake, it does something to you. It recharges you. It resets you. I'm not sure. There's no one size fits all. So I don't claim to sit here and have all the answers of how to reset. I only want to point the direction that I think that we should consider resetting ourselves, whatever that means to you. So I just want to give you guys a couple examples to get you out of a self-recession and get you into what it is that you want to be, to get you flourishing, to move you from surviving to thriving. And I think it's the very first thing, I've said this before, but this is the power and philosophy of not giving a shit what anybody thinks about you. I think it's probably one of the biggest ones. I beat that one up so many times. But really, guys, I think that's where it starts. And I think a lot of people are more concerned with aesthetics instead of functionalities. And just people can't really, you know, do what I just said. They can't take off their shoes and put their feet in a pond because it would look weird. And maybe they'd dirty their pants, you know. There's just so much craziness out there that we need to regroup. We need to reground ourselves into nature basically into ourselves. And I think a lot of that has to do not giving a shit what people think about you, going out in nature, listening to the wind and the trees, listening to the ocean. And it's probably things that people are like, oh God, whatever. But I ask you guys this. What you have going on inside yourself, in your own head, is what you got. Social media, movies, seeds, candies, chocolates, sushi. Well, I don't know about sushi. Maybe sushi. Maybe it's got some play there. But a lot of these things aren't going to change what you got. And I know that's a scary thought, but it's a positive and it's a powerful step for you to take a step forward into yourself and engineer the inner part of you to deal with and to be able to perform what it is that you want. You see, the mind is it's a downloadable tool. It's like a computer. And what we put in there, just like we were talking about your perspectives, what you've got going on inside your head is what you will perceive things. You will see things as you believe that they are, and not as they are. And I think it's perspective. So kind of like the thing where people say, if you've got a problem, everybody's got a problem but you, but maybe you're the problem. You know. I want to move this forward to listening to the inner dialogue. So the inner dialogue, there's a guy named Bruce Lipton. He talks a lot about epigenetics and things like that. He's not the only one talking about what is called the subconscious mind. But I want to kind of explain it to you if it seems, if this makes sense. We have an undertow of a subconscious mind, and according to Bruce Lipton and a couple other people, this is how, for instance, I'm driving right now and speaking, I'm able to do two things. The subconscious mind kind of takes over, while the conscious mind is start conjuring up a bunch of things. That's how we're able to kind of split things around. But what we have, in my opinion, and I believe others as well, is that a lot of the belief systems, the ideas, and the convictions and things we have about ourselves, about others, in the world, are buried down way underneath in our subconscious mind. And the way I kind of figure this is that there's certain people, certain places, and things that I don't like to do. I don't ever want to go see these people ever again. I don't want to, I just tell myself, remember, this is why you don't do this kind of stuff. We don't need to know the answers or something. Just whenever it comes up, let's just kind of shortcut it. And just say, no, I'm not going. I don't know. Well, why? I don't know. I just don't really feel like going. See, I'm an asshole. Most people try to come up with excuses of why they wouldn't want to go, like, to certain people's homes or invite certain people in their lives. Me, I just say, I don't know. And this is why. I says, well, I just don't. I don't really want to. So we'll leave it at that. So I plant myself with these little seeds inside my subconscious because I have a lot of things I got to do. I'm very busy. I'm sure like a lot of you guys are too. So I swallow this idea, and I know her. We're never going to do this one again. And it's a positive because every time I would do certain things, it would be miserable. And I'm like, why did I do this again? Why did I drink too many drinks and go home with that gal, again? You just got to get it in there. But this is how a lot of these seeds, opinions of ourselves and stuff like that get buried inside of ourselves. And it comes out every once in a while. It'll peek its head out. And you can hear it in yourself. And you can hear it when other people speak, a group of people. Yeah, for example, you always take one step forward, you take 10 steps back. There's always crap that's going to, we have no control of anything. There's this, there's that. So all those little things start popping up. And this is all their ideas and their subconscious thoughts and seeds that they have going on inside them. And there's also, and for yourself, when you venture out to say, do anything, and you come out and you're like, all right, I'm thinking about doing this. And then all those little voices come up. Well, how do you know you're going to be able to do it? You don't have any experience doing this. Who are you? And then, who are you? Nobody's ever done this before. Who do you think you are to be able to do this? You think you're even going to be able to make it? And this guy, well, I don't know. I think we'll give it a good shot and everything. You could lose a lot of money, or you could lose a lot of time, or just all that dialogue starts to pop up, and I think it freezes us. So the point being, I think that it's smart for a lot of us to start paying more attention to that inner dialogue. Not only in ourselves, you can notice it in others, and you can kind of tell subconsciously what's going on with a situation, with a certain with a certain individual, and I think with yourself. And I think a good thing, as I said before on the show, is to write these things down. Write them down on paper if you can't memorize them in your head, and start to deal with these things. Run towards these problems and extinguish these fires, or better yet, analogy, clean all the clutter and the garbage out of your house, because sooner or later it's going to start stinking, and sooner or later it's going to make you sick if you don't clean it up. And then we bury them and we forget that they're there. And then we start having these underlying things where we have such things as depression, aggression, all these essions, you know, and we don't know why. And then it becomes scary when you open up the can later on in life, you know, and you've got a whole can of just a bunch of skeletons in the closet. So pay attention to the inner dialogue. Notice what these things are and replace them. You can replace these things with the beliefs and the ideas that you want. I'm going to move forward into creative visualization. And let's look at these negatives here for a second. If we are that powerful to create these negative thoughts and these things in our lives, aren't we equally as powerful to create positive things in our lives? Right? So where did a lot of these things, like you're incapable of doing this? Who told you that you're incapable of doing something? Who told you that this is the way you're supposed to feel? I have some ideas. I think social media, I think movies, the entertainment industry, public education, the way you were raised, your parents, a lot of different enterprises I don't really care to mention, but it doesn't really matter. But these things were passed on to you by somebody else or by something else, and you allowed these things to enter your mind, enter your body, and physically shape who you are, and give you, and mentally and spiritually shape who you are. Who's to say? And then you've contributed to that as well. I don't like always pointing the finger outwards, you know, blaming other things. I like to take accountability and say, hey, maybe I had a part of this too. But the point here is not to beat you up. The point here is to actually wake you up a little bit for you to figure out what you can and can't do. And I think there's a saying with the Catholics in Catholicism where they said, give us a kid from like 2 years old to, I forget what it was, or 7 years old. I think it was like 7 years or some shit. I don't know. But basically, they're openly saying that they can program a kid. And they says, you give that kid to us from this time to that amount of time, and we'll create a Catholic for life. They know that the mental hard drive is developing in a child. I believe that it keeps going, even in your adulthood. You start picking up new things. You know, what would you know, what some famous actor, what would Johnny Depp do in this situation? You're trying to be these people. You think that these people are what you should aspire to. So you're not paying attention to yourself, you're paying attention to them. So the point is we're definitely fooled, but what is it now if we turn it around and we start utilizing things like creative visualization to actually manifest and create the realities and the belief systems that we actually prefer? Is it possible? I, in my opinion, would say yes. But we got to start someplace. We've already started with the negative. Isn't it interesting how the negative feelings and like you look at what's popular in movies and things, there's always this drama or something really heavy, somebody got murdered or horrible shit that sticks with you. When the great stuff, the happy stuff, is long forgotten. It's human nature. But the power to realize here is that you can create your own movie. You can be your own rock star, movie star, painter, poet, whatever the fuck you want to be. You just have to start working and utilizing that spiritual, energetic muscle. I don't even know how to put it into words. As Terrence McKenna says, the funny noises that come out of our faces, our mouths. But the way that I can see doing this is creative visualization. And it's spending a lot of time focusing on the right things has been one of my sayings lately. By just closing your eyes and visualizing what you want. Say when you go and you start doing these practices where you write down all these negative things, all these inner dialogues, and you say, you know what? I don't choose to feel this way. I don't choose to believe this way. It's a dialogue. It came in as a dialogue. It could leave as a dialogue. I don't like the way this makes me feel. I take full accountability for what this has done and where this has come from, and I choose to leave it and not have to deal with this again. This is not me. This is my creation, and I permit this all to discreate. And in place of that, I want to create blank, whatever it is that you want. And pay close attention to the taste, the smell, the feel. Imagine what it is that you want. And the more and more you do this and you keep practicing this, the more I believe, and it's said that there's a lot of great celebrities and people, big business people. I think Mike Tyson, I think, is one that I shared on this show. That's the reason why I'm giving you guys, I put so much energy and effort into myself for doing this, and also wanted to share with you guys for some examples. So this is not just coming from, you know, some little person someplace with some idea that maybe. A lot of these people attribute this towards their success and where they've gotten to. If you didn't hear the one from Mike Tyson, powerful thing, it just hit me like a hammer. Was he says how they asked him how did you get so successful? What happened? He says, I had to prepare myself to be the champ. I had to imagine, I had to be the champ before I was the champ. And I just kept visualizing myself and preparing myself, acting and living like I was the champ, if that makes sense. And I want you guys to be the champions of yourselves. I want you guys to go out there and utilize what it is that I'm saying. So look at the powerful of this idea of this thing of how we can create negativity, and then flip that around and how we can create positivity. I hope that one really helped you guys out. That really felt good, the perspective and the way I defined that out. So once you get this all down, you're able to go out and help other people. So those of you who are out there, do-gooders as I call them, and they want to actually make a difference in the world, you need to help yourself first. You need to live by example. And if we're able to do these things and we're able to shine, and I think, and that's your deal, is you want to go out there and change the world and help people. You've got the tools, you've got these things, you've got the inner power to where when people start to get negative, you know how to turn this into something positive. So a lot of these exercises, this philosophy that I've shared with you guys, I think you're going to notice too when other people start sending negative energies, yelling at you, acting inappropriately. It's your choice how you can respond to this. You can either get very angry, or you can have no response, and you can actually visually see what the problems are, because when you think about it, these people are actually placing the problems out in front of you. They're defining them and they're showing them to you what problems they have. They can't really see it themselves most likely, but you're able to see it now. You're able to hear the inner dialogue. You're able to see the inner dialogue and the things that are happening. Therefore, if the time is right and you're able to do it successfully, you're able to transfer the information to that person and say, well, judging from what I've just heard from you, here's what we've got going on, and here's how I think that I can help you or you can help yourself, if that makes sense. So go out there and use the trick, is what I like to call it, though it's not a trick. It's like some people get angry about this, I guess. To me, it's like a skateboard trick. You do a kickflip. It's a trick. Here's a trick where I'm able to do a double backflip and spin around. It's a trick I learned. Not a magic trick, just a trick, to clarify that. Let's move forward to create the landscapes. And I think before we go, we're moving into the outer part of this whole outer engineering part now. And one of the things that I look at, though, with landscapes before we move forward is that all of these daydreams and these maps and these images of things that you want to be, I think are landscapes that can guide you. They're basically like a heading. And when you begin to get lost and you begin to not know what to do with yourself, and you begin to get sucked into the systems and what people are doing and out of yourself, and you start to feel depressed, you can move your mind towards these landscapes that you've created, these landmarks. And I think that's one thing that's probably, I know for myself, is that I'm always aiming myself towards something. I want freedom. I want to get myself a piece of property one day and do the things that I'm about to speak of, to plant trees and raise possibly animals, just be with nature and live a clean, happy, healthy life. And I visualize those things. And I'm also doing things to work towards them. So I make some really good money. I hate my job. I really do. I do not like my job, but I love the money. So what I experience when I start getting depressed, or, for instance, it's like 35 degrees outside. There's ice all over the place. I got to change out of my work clothes and put some icy cold work pants on. and get up on a roof or in a construction site, my hands are freezing. I'm like, why am I doing this? You know, this sucks. And then I utilize those landscapes. I have a direction, I have a heading, and I know that I'm doing this to get to that. It's always the thing that I look at. I don't know if I've said this before on my show, but it's also one of my personal philosophies. There's always the thing that I'm after, and it's not necessarily who came up with the thing or like money. I don't give a shit how much money money to me is my property. Being able to buy that piece of land one of these days. It's what the money can get me. It's the thing, not sitting there with the actual money in my hand, that makes me happy. So to move forward, there's a lot of things I'm going to brush by because we're taking up a lot of time here. But on the outer parts of engineering is we can engineer the earth. And I know this probably sets a lot of people off. You know, they're probably like, wait, what? But I mean this in a good way, and it's through what's called permaculture. And if you've never heard this before, it's just basically farming with nature and utilizing the tools, working side by side with nature in a symbiotic relationship. And I just kind of wanted to give you guys some examples of how we've worked on ourselves. We're able to work with other people. Now we want to work with the things around us, the animals and the trees and the vegetation and everything, and do good for our planet. There's no better method, well, one of probably the best method I've found, in my opinion, than permaculture. And basically what we can do, I'll give you guys some examples, is we can dig these things called swales. And what swales are basically a ditch. And let's look on a piece of property like here in Sunnyside, California. When it rains, the rain will wash over the soil very quickly. It's a very high clay content of the soil. And until the clay gets wet enough and so saturated, then the water will actually absorb into the ground. I believe most soils are like this. But what happens when it rains, a lot of that water, let's say we get a 1-inch rain, and all the water just starts shooting off into the ditches, down the gutters and everything, down the streets, over your property, until it finds a place to saturate, and then it just follows the laws of gravity. It sinks into the ground and then runs off into into streams and things like that underground. Well, what these swales do, these ditches, is you're going to build on contour. You're going to actually manipulate the earth. You're going to get yourself a level, and you're going to level out a ditch so that when the water comes, like some of them are called fish scale or boomerangs. They'll actually make like a big mound, the shape of a boomerang, and inside the cup, inside the little U part, the V area, when the water comes, it hits that V, it fills up like a pond, and then it slowly saturates into the ground, right? So that's what these swale ditches do as well. You can make little ones all over the place. When the water comes and it hits this ditch, and has to go sideways, then it dumps into another one sideways and another one. So what's the point of all this? Is that we're able to outer engineer the grounds, the soil. And what will happen, instead of all that water running off, we're storing it all at the highest point of our property, or any type of land, a mountain range or something, and that water slowly going to start seeping down. You can imagine the water going through the soil. It's got to hit all kinds of obstacles, so it's slowed down. And it slowly starts to seep. It slowly starts to seep down. It could take months before that water reaches a certain point, from the high point to the low point. Well, what's going to happen in between that? Because there's moisture under the ground. The worms are going to show up. The microbiology is going to show up. Why are they going to show up? Because there's vegetation starting to grow. A couple seeds fell. Say you planted some trees. Say you planted some bushes. Say you planted some vegetables. And a lot of these things absorbing that water is creating microbiology under the ground. And as the years go by and you keep maintaining these things or making bigger ones and keeping that water stored in the ground, so does everything start to green up. I think a very inspiring thing that you guys can look at is a guy by the name of Geoff Lawton. And it's not Jeff, it's GeoffLawton. Geoff Lawton. Just Google Geoff Lawton permaculture, and he will show you some amazing things, how they're turning deserts into forests. They're greening the deserts. They've got before and afters. They have progressions for years that go by. And the point I want to make with this example of permaculture is that we want to create beauty. I'm the type of person that wants it all, and I imagine that you guys do too. And what I look at is, let's create beauty on the inside. Let's inner engineer ourselves. Let's outer engineer with the people, and let's also outer engineer with the earth. Let's make beauty everywhere, and let's live. That's the whole point of this show, is to live, is to design yourself to live a better life, to move from surviving to thriving. And that's the way we can do it, through creating beauty for ourselves, for others, for giving to nature. And the feeling, I think, do it just because it feels good is a big saying that I have. When you look over something that you did, such as a ditch thing, a swale that you made, and you start to see the vegetation and the birds coming to eat the seeds off the wild plants and things, you know that you had a part of that. And I think it's something that's very beautiful and very empowering. And that for you guys to know that even from the inside of our bodies, of our minds, our souls, around the earth, everything, there's so much possibilities. And I'm here to share and with you guys that things don't have to be the way they are. Things are actually somewhat, I would say, perfect. And it's up to us to use our toolboxes and develop these things, share our information with others, and learn the most that we can, and start designing these things now, not tomorrow, not because we didn't do it yesterday. We're going to do it today. So the last note I have here is a lesson from nature. It does have to do with permaculture, and I think it has to do with your inner self as well. There's always so much that we can learn from nature. I think it was Albert Einstein that says, look deep into nature and you will understand everything a lot better. Everything. That's a pretty big saying. So I have a couple here. And again, as I tell you this example from permaculture, I want you to think about how about yourself, about your inner self, your outer self, and just look at this and go, how can I take this model and apply it to myself? So we have certain things that people like Bill Mollison noticed in permaculture was there'd be a fence post, right? And there's some wire fencing there. Well, the birds come and they perch on top of this post. That's that we notice. And there's a bunch of vegetation from the wind that blows and gets stuck against this fence along the wires on the bottom. It becomes like a dam, right? The stuff just keeps accumulating there. There's a bunch of tumbleweeds and all kinds of different vegetations, and the birds come down and notice there's a whole bunch of stack of stuff there. So they come down, they start pecking and eating these seeds. There's abundance of them. They don't even need to go hunting around or everything. You know, maybe there's some insects that get because they need to be shaded. It's creating this whole biome, its own like mini kind of ecosystem. Well, then the bird gets all its fill full of food, of seeds and little insects that are in there, flies back up on the post, and is sitting there going, wow, that was a very good meal. And the bird just like poops, takes a shit, you know, and the poop lands down by the pole. And because the wind keeps blowing this stuff constantly, and the birds keep noticing, they get trained that the stuff's there. They start noticing that there's accumulation of this bird droppings there. And what happens is it starts to mineralize the soil just in this tiny little area. It's a very small portion where this wood post is sitting. And because the leaves and the trees and the branches and things are getting stuck on here, every time it rains, the water comes in and gets stuck, and it acts like a dam. All these little leaves and everything sitting in this fence. The water starts to accumulate there, and guess what happens with all those seeds that are stuck in there? Little things start to grow. Little other animals, rabbits, start to come and eat, and they start pooping. And that fertilizes the soil, and they're carrying seeds in their poop. Other things start to form. Now coyotes, I know this is a drastic one, but coyotes will come and they notice that a bunch of rabbits are along the fence line. The ecosystem starts to develop. There's lizards hiding inside there now because they got a thick, dense, after a few years and nobody cleaning the stuff up, there's this thick, dense mass for them to hide under. And little mice start coming in and putting their little nests in there. So do you see something that is so simple, something that is so overlooked? I think is probably one of the most powerful things, the power of observation, in my opinion, how we would look at simple things that completely just passes by. We're not taking the time. We're not focusing on the right things. We're not engineering ourselves to have this ability. We're not exercising to be vigilant, to look around us. And as we look in nature, and this little stupid example that I give you is minuscule to the amount of things that are out there that happen in nature that we can learn about ourselves, the nature of ourselves. So to further on that, you guys, besides the fact that Do you realize how this little story that I woven for you guys on something so simple, and maybe possibly some of you may seem so stupid, is for you to be able to utilize those things in yourself. Start putting these little ideas, these daydreams and these landscapes in your life. Start listening to the inner dialogue and start watching how all of these things start to accumulate in your life, and other things start to come to you. You will start developing, by exercising this, ways of your own and seeds of your own to plant inside yourself. And when you start accumulating this positivity, it's like those weeds stuck in the fence. A lot of other positive things are going to start happening, and they're going to start accumulating. And an engineering of a biome will start to form inside you, and inside, the inner and the outside, and things will start happening in your life that you've never dreamed about. And I think that's all I have to say on that. I'm starting to fumble on my words. I was just really excited to share this one with you guys today. Outer and inner engineering. I hope that it made sense for you guys, and I hope it helps a lot of people out there that are struggling right now. I've got a lot more stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm going to be here for you guys as much as I can. I hope at least once a week, either Mondays or Tuesdays is when I try to get these shows out. But things happen. I've got a lot going on right now of engineering of my own, and I hope that you take this message and you run with it. So you guys, thank you so much for being here today. That's the show. You can find this a bunch of different components to this Up and In It show on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Apple, iTunes, Spotify. I'm all over the place. I try to do kind of little different things when I have the time for you guys to share some extra information. I think a lot of it too is I kind of want to try to use TikTok and Instagram because they're very quick. I want to kind of use that to prove to you guys that I'm not false, that I'm not one of these sales idiots out there, assholes, trying to show you guys just all the good shit. No, I want to kind of show you guys the real life stuff so that you guys can actually see what it is that I'm doing. And know that, dude, if a monkey ass ape like me can do it, you can do it as well. So go out there and have yourself a near life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it. Love it. Own it. And bone it, my friend.